Am I the asshole for kicking my mom out of my place after she kicked my boyfriend out? My F26 mom and stepdad got divorced 6 months ago. She doesn't work and couldn't afford rent, so we the family agreed to take turns in letting her stay with us. I own an apartment and live alone and have plans to move my boyfriend of 6 months later. Mom moved in with me month ago. She can be very conservative. She started acting bossy and had an attitude especially towards my boyfriend. E.g., she took the copy of the key to the apartment that I gave to my boyfriend saying we haven't been together long to trust him with my key. And gave scenarios of him going in to steal when we're out. She left him waiting outside several times for showing up, late, which was as late as 7 p.m. She never agrees to let him stay the night and throws tantrums and get too paranoid when that happens, then complain she couldn't sleep all night knowing there was a stranger in the apartment. She did other things and set ridiculous rules for my friends, but that another story. So I was getting fed up after talking to her, telling her I'm not a little girl and she had to respect that it's my place. Yesterday I was on my period and was in bed all day. Mom was out all day. She came home and I asked if she was going to cook dinner. I was hungry and had no energy to stand. She said she already eaten out and that I should keep my stomach empty when I'm in period pain. I ignored her and texted my boyfriend. He said he was on his way and brought food and pain medication. This was at 6, by the way. He said he needed an hour, so I decided to rest before he arrived. But he came early and I was still in bed at the time when Mom opened the door. I woke up to her screaming. I walked out and found her arguing with him at the door, refusing to let him in. She was saying it was late and he should leave. I told her to step aside and let him come in, but she pitched a fit saying there was no way in hell she was going to stay up till the morning because there's a stranger in the apartment. I said he's not a stranger, he's my boyfriend, she said in her eyes. He's a stranger till he does the logical thing and put a ring on it. I got mad and said she was acting like a crazy old woman right now. She reminded me she's my mother, but I reminded her it's my place. She turned and said to him, "You can leave the food here and go home, it's getting late. Besides, she's on her period, so she's useless to you tonight." My boyfriend walked away leaving the food and medication. I went off on her and yelled that she was out of line and needed to pack her things and leave cause I don't want her in my place after this stunt. She didn't think I was serious till pulled her bags and called an Uber. She then started crying and guilting me, then left to my brother's place. My brother was fuming, saying I was supposed to host her till end of August and said Mom didn't do anything and it was disgraceful that I did this to her over some guy. He's been mad along with the others at my behavior and told me check myself, apologize, and offered to take her in. Not the asshole, and please let us know how long your brother is able to put up with her. Not the asshole. Change the locks. Not the asshole. Well done for finally standing up to her. I hope she learns a lesson about being a choosy beggar. Your house, your rules. Not the asshole. Your bro is big mad because he doesn't want the crazy old bat in his home all summer. Here's the thing. None of you is responsible for housing her. She can get a job and house herself. Not the asshole, your mom is a complete control freak. Don't let her come back. Not the asshole, and WTF. You are an adult, not a child. She has no business taking keys, etc. And, she's of no use to you. What doesn't she think he's only coming around to F you? Don't bother answering, I think we both know it's yes. And I'm thinking we know why your brother is so pissed. He probably doesn't want Nightmare Mama at his place. Not the asshole. It's your home. If your guest can't behave respectfully, she needs to go. Definitely not the asshole. She should be thankful for you opening your home to her, which you're not obligated to do. She did many things over the course of days. You didn't ask her to leave after the first thing she did. Which is what I would have done. You gave a chance after a chance, but she keeps pressing you and pushing your boundaries each and every time worse than before. She's a guest and she couldn't comprehend that and kept pushing her luck. Respect is earned. She didn't respect you or your relationship. Why should you tolerate it? Am I the asshole for shaming, aka calling out my brother-in-law in front of everyone? I, 25 female, am very close to my sister, 27 female. She met her husband when she was 19 and they got married 3 years ago. My sister was diagnosed with endometriosis when she was 15 and hers was bad enough that they told her she would need fertility treatment to get pregnant, but that even then, there were no guarantees she would stay pregnant. It devastated her because she always wanted to be a mom and we always dreamed of having kids close in age and raising them together. The doctors were not wrong about her needing help, and right before lockdown happened they had agreed to pursue IVF. They started the process late last year and thankfully the first round worked. She's expecting my niece. The issue in all this is her husband. For some reason he doesn't seem to like how close we are, and he's made some comments to me before that to me read as him wanting to create issues where there are none. One time he told me about a party he and my sister threw for some of their mutual friends and how they didn't invite me and how she never mentioned inviting me. Okay, we have both done that before. Just because we're close it doesn't mean we include each other in everything. Another time he said they spent more on his sister's birthday than mine. Again, not a huge deal and I still got a lovely gift. Then another time he joked that my sister had forgotten our plans and went to do something else, when in actual fact she just went to shower. She overheard and asked him about it, which he said was a joke. Anyway, we were all gathered for a small family dinner at my parents', and when I went to do something he came over and said he guessed my sister didn't want to have kids close in age anymore since she didn't ever consider waiting until I was going to have a kid. I was so pissed at his comment because I suffered a miscarriage in November, which everyone knows about. He wouldn't talk about it like grown adults and instead laughed through most of dinner. I had enough once everyone had asked me twice what was up and why was I so pissed. So I asked the dude what his deal was. Why did he want to drive me and my sister apart, and why did he find the need to point out that they were having a baby and not waiting for me, like that made any sense at all. My sister was furious with her husband. More so because she drove the point home that he knew I'd had a miscarriage and to then say what he did and smirk about it after. I said only kids get so jealous of their spouse being close to family and that I really wanted to know what his deal was. He acted like he never knew about the miscarriage and then turned it back on me and accused me of shaming him for something he had no idea about. I pointed out I was just calling him on what he had said. He said I should have handled it all privately, and the only reason I am considering what he said is my sister is so upset right now at him, but still, and I don't want to make her pregnancy any rougher than it needs to be. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. Publicly calling out was the only way to stop him. If he thought what he was saying was okay, he wouldn't say it only when you guys are alone. Your poor sister, her husband isn't very nice. Turning it back on other people is nasty. You haven't upset your sister, he did. He could have said nothing at all and she wouldn't be upset. Your poor sister. He's definitely the I hope you're okay following your miscarriage. He needs to seek help honestly, face with rolling eyes. Not the asshole. It sounds like if you did try to handle it privately, he probably would have just belittled and made fun of you more. I'm sorry you and your sister have to deal with this. Not the asshole. He is abusive. Asking you to keep his cruel comments a secret is just one of their tactics. My advice going forward is to never hide anything he says or does. He may stop targeting you once he realizes that everything he says to you is broadcast to everyone. Also, if this is your first time having to have a relationship with an abusive personality, read up on them so that you know what to look out for. Not the asshole. He sounds unbearable. Not to mention those are all super weird things to try and one-up you with. I feel sorry for your sister and I hope she manages to get out of that relationship before they have kids and she's stuck with him. Not the asshole by any means. His jealousy of you and your sister's relationship is concerning. If he is trying to isolate her from other friends too, this could be especially unhealthy for her. Your sister needs to put a stop to this. Can you gently let her know the extent of what has been going on and your concerns about it? She has a right to know. Edit. Forgot to mention, their daughter might be at risk as well, since he might feel he needs to compete with her for his wife's attention too. Just something to keep an eye out for. Not the asshole, but I feel so bad for your sister, stuck married to someone like that. I hope he's treating her right, but from my experience people who go out of their way to treat people like shit usually treat AAALL people like shit. And it goes to show you what kind of a person he is. Not the asshole. He is jealous of your close relationship. He wants to be the most important and probably only person in your sister's life. I have to give him the benefit of the doubt for his knowledge about the miscarriage because it sounds like you never told him yourself, but he is still 100% a childish ass. Am I the asshole for controlling what pictures my boyfriend can show of me? I, 28F, have been dating a great guy named Greg, 28M, for about a year. Just FYI. Us being together has nothing to do with the central conflict here. This isn't about the relationship. I'm the kind of girl who's concerned with her appearance, used to be morbidly obese and was teased heavily for my looks. I don't obsess or anything, I just like to make sure my hair, makeup, outfit look nice and put together. IYKWIM. Sometimes as a joke though I send Greg candid, purposefully ugly pictures of me that are just meant to be kept between us, and he'll do the same to me. Just silly little pictures of each other to keep the other person entertained during the day. As Greg and I slowly became more serious, his buddies wanted to know what I look like since they've never met me. We started dating right around when everything went into lockdown. So Greg asked me if he could show some pictures. I said, sure. Greg has plenty of pictures of me when I'm totally glammed up, so I just naturally assumed those would be the ones he'd show. But when he came home he showed me some of the photos he sent, and they were the stupid, silly, ugly photos. I was really upset and embarrassed. I was like, why would you show them the intentionally unflattering photos? And he was like, why does it bother you? I love the way you look without makeup. We had a serious argument about it. I tried to explain my point of view by using two analogies. 1. Whenever we have guests over, we always deep clean the house. Sure, we try and keep it fairly tidy every day, but when you're showing a house for the first time you want to put your best foot forward, right? That's the way I feel about the pictures of me. 2. Greg has zero online presence because, once you put something out there, you have no control over it. I totally understand and respect his wishes, so even when I'm posting on my private Facebook page I use a nickname for him and blur his face out of any pics of us. I basically said that my control over the photos should be respected just as much as I respect his need to control details about his likeness being online. He rejected both of these analogies and just said, those are different circumstances. Basically at the end of this I said I wasn't willing to budge on this, and we went through his gallery and I pointed out specific photos that I wanted to be kept completely private and said he was not allowed to show those pictures to people. He thinks it's weird that he isn't allowed to show certain pictures of me, and he doesn't know why I make a distinction between candid unflattering pictures and professional quality headshots. I think it's weird that he can't see the difference between these two categories, and I also don't think it's a big deal to say, please only share these certain pictures, especially considering that he also wants to control information about himself. I think he's being hypocritical. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole. They're your photos of you. You have the right to set boundaries around them, and if he respects you, he should be considerate about them. If he has a pattern of disregarding your boundaries or attempting to control you, you may want to consider whether or not Greg is actually a great guy. Not the asshole. Could it be that he is just jealous and doesn't want to show the glammed up ones because his friends may start hitting on you? Nah. You can control the pics you want shown. But he's not a mind reader. If he doesn't comply moving forward, then he is the not the asshole. He's got double standards. I'm going to go not the asshole because I'm assuming Greg knows your history with your appearance and the bullying you received because of it. However, he thinks those silly photos of you that aren't glammed up represent a beautiful you, not an ugly you. Yes, he needs to respect your wish to only show pictures of you that are acceptable. But find a way to respect his opinion of you without the outfits and makeup. Not the asshole. Lol, he's so paranoid of social media presence that you're hiding his name and face. But he can't understand why you wouldn't want certain photos shared of you? He's either an idiot or purposefully doing it. No way he doesn't get the simple logic of your request. Not the asshole. You have respected Greg's boundaries when it comes to posting information and photos of him on your social media, and he should respect yours in this matter in return. Even if he can claim he didn't know it would upset you before he did it. You have now told him you don't want him to do it again, and he is attempting to argue that he should be allowed to do it anyways. He doesn't need to understand your boundaries in order to respect them. Not the asshole. Am I the asshole for not helping my husband find parking when I wanted to take the train? I, 23F, have a friend that just moved to NYC. He invited my husband, 29M, and I for a housewarming party with a bunch of our old friends, and to go out for drinks before and after the party. NYC is about a 3.5-hour distance away from where we live. I like to take the train because dealing with parking is a hassle and I can just relax on the train. The tickets aren't expensive. My husband is very frugal and basically if we don't have to buy it, he doesn't want us to. I should point out our finances are separate and we are both doing very well. So we have a deal worked out for planning trips where, for example, if the trip is to go visit one of my friends, I will do the planning and vice versa. So my plan for our travel was to take the train. Husband didn't like this. When I brought it up he immediately shut it down and started trying to convince me that we should drive. I explained that I really didn't want to for the reasons I mentioned above. He explained that he didn't want me to spend the money on train tickets and he even offered to drive. We went to bed and he brought it up again in the morning and was more persistent this time. I just gave in and said, okay, because I really didn't feel like arguing about it anymore and it was clear he wasn't going to budge. So he drove. He was planning on parking in a specific parking lot in this NYC suburb he used to live in, and then we'd take the train the rest of the way in, 3540 Malanes. Guess what happens when we get there? We can't find parking because all of the known parking lots are full. He calls the parking authority and they tell him he can leave the car in a residential part of town on the street but only for 24 hours. We won't be back in time because we're staying the whole weekend. When they hang up he's frustrated and starts saying things like, "Can you start looking at other options instead of just sitting there?" And, "This was your trip to plan. Why didn't you have this figured out ahead of time?" Meanwhile I'm just tracking on the trains because at this point we missed the first one and now we're about to miss the next one, and the next one after that isn't for another hour. Keep in mind, we're meeting up with people. We had to find parking far away and run to the train station to make the train. I was almost in tears, my friends were annoyed we took so long, and the whole thing was so stressful. I just kept thinking, none of this would have been issue if we had just taken the train the whole way. Basically he grilled me about it again on the way home. He said he had a good time but wished I would have planned better on the way up. My argument was that I did have a plan, he just didn't like it and took it into his own hands. Fine by me, but then he gets to find parking. Since that was the literal reason I didn't want to drive in the first place, I don't see why it's now my responsibility. But because it was my trip he thinks it was all on me. Thoughts? Not the asshole. Your husband sure is though. He made a shitty choice, he is responsible for figuring it out. It is time for your husband to learn that one of the best uses of money is anything that saves you time, so that you can enjoy it. He may have saved a dime, but you guys wasted a ton of time. You paid an aggravation tax, he created a fight for no good reason. Not the asshole. Oh, I'd be seething mad. And when he said you should have planned better, I would have wanted to get out, get on the train, and tell him to enjoy a weekend at home alone because he sure as shit wasn't spending it with me. Honestly, it sounds like he realized right away that he fucked up and was too proud to admit it, so he tried to turn it back on you. You are not the asshole. Your husband is the aw. Next time you take the train and let him drive. NYER here, that was the dumbest thing he could have possibly done. Shit is typically unpredictable, so taking the train would have absolutely been the best choice. Not the asshole. The fact that he couldn't admit he fucked up makes him the aw. Placing the blame on you makes him even more of an aw. Not the asshole. Next time leave his ass at home. For me, he clearly changed your reasoned plan so it became his issue. If his plan had worked out, I imagine he'd have become smug about it. Not the asshole from my perspective. You are not the asshole, but your husband is one so massive it could block out the sun and cause a total assclips. I would tear him the asshole of all assholes over this and tell him in no uncertain terms that this was his cock-up and his alone, and that if he'd listened to you the two of you would have been on time. I'd recommend finishing up the conversation by saying he has one of two choices: couples and/or financial counseling or divorce mediation. He might also need solo counseling. These are huge red flags that he took out his frustration at himself for poor planning on you and projected responsibility for his screw-up onto you. This might be borderline gaslighting behavior. Not the asshole for exactly the reason that you stated, you had a plan. You wanted to take the train, you wanted to avoid having to search for parking, that was your plan. He overrode you, and insisted on driving, which means that every bit of parking-related issues were his to solve. That is what is called a consequence of being stubborn and not listening to your significant other. Perhaps next time he will hear you when you say that you'd like to take the train to avoid parking issues.